Hey guys, it's Katelyn. I have something that I wanted to clarify for you today about a technique I use when talking to people. Some of you might have heard me talk about this before, but hopefully I'm going to explain it a little bit more clearly today. And for those of you who are newer coaches, I realize that some of the stuff that I used to teach to newer coaches back in the day, some of that just doesn't get repeated as much as it should. So I hope this helps you guys today. So the one more question technique is something that I actually learned from Scotty Hobbs back in, I think it was almost a full 2 or 3 years ago during Winter Summit. It was 3 years ago. It was the first Winter Summit. And what I realized was there was just a point when I was talking to people where I was stopping a little short. And what I mean by that is that there were opportunities when I was talking to people to just ask 1 or 2 more questions and really go deep. So one of the problems I see, or mistakes I see a lot of new coaches making, and something that I definitely did myself when I was newer, was that you can talk to people, and a lot of times we say over and over again, it's just about building relationships. But often I see the mistake that people will just focus on building the relationship, and they're just too afraid to ask if, like for example, if the customer knows about Beachbody products, or if they know what we do in our challenge groups, or if they have any health goals, things like that. So back when Scotty showed me that a lot of where I was stopping just a little short in my conversation, I learned after that point to just ask 1 more question. So when I would be sending a message to somebody, regardless of where I would stop. So for some people that you can tell they're really not interested, and I would stop a little earlier in the conversation, versus somebody who did actually express interest in Beachbody products or getting a workout program, wherever that natural stop where I would be inclined to just like end the conversation and say like, thanks, let me know if you're ever interested in something. I've just learned to take it 1 step farther. So for somebody who's maybe not expressed an interest in the program, typically when I have any kind of conversation with somebody, it always comes up what I do as a coach, and or they at least know what my business is. That's like a question that as humans we always ask each other. So what do you do? So there's a lot of things reasons that can come up. Somebody can ask you what you do for a living. Somebody can ask you what's new. Doesn't everybody ask that question in every single conversation? What's new? And you can say, oh, I'm really excited. It's January, so we just kicked off some of our new health and fitness groups that I do as a coach. And so where that conversation might naturally trail off or switch to a different subject, that's a great place to just say like, oh, do you have any health and fitness goals you're working on? Or do you, have you ever heard of the challenge groups that I do? If this is somebody that maybe is a closer friend of yours that should likely know what you're doing, but you're not sure they quite understand it. So that's really what I learned, was when I would ask those 1 or 2 more questions, I would learn that sometimes people were more interested than I expected. Like they might say like, hey, yeah, I do have some health and fitness goals that I'm working on. And then once they start elaborating and talking, that's where sometimes you can find the common ground of what they need and what you can offer. But additionally, I also discovered in this process that some of my closest friends, even when I had been a coach for 2 years or more, still weren't sure what I was actually doing with Beachbody, especially if they're not as involved with social media as all of us coaches are. And you have to assume that most people that you're talking to are not going to be on Facebook as much as you and I are, and therefore we think they're seeing a lot of our posts, but they might be seeing very few and far between. So it's important to ask even some of your closest friends like, oh, I'm just curious, like, do you get what I do with these challenge groups? And then share your story. And a lot of times that's where the magic happens. So if you watch my video from the other day, it was on my personal profile, and it's just called how to make somebody's day. That's what it was. But it was about this guy that stopped me on the street and just like said, hey, what's hammer and chisel? Because I had the shirt on. And I could have told him what I did and then said, so what do you do? And the conversation could have moved on. But what I did was I said like, oh, just curious, do you have any health and fitness goals you're working on? And he said, actually, yeah, kind of. I mean, I just basically walk for my exercise program, but I wouldn't mind getting into, a fitness program. And I said, sure, like, I'll let you know what we have to offer. And if it's not your thing, no pressure, but what's your email? And then after that, we did continue to talk more about him and his wife, who was also there. I learned a little bit about them, and it was a really cool conversation. But had I not asked that question, the conversation could have easily skipped past that onto their lives, and we could have just said goodbye and went our separate ways. So just learn to take advantage of realize where you would naturally stop and make assumptions and assume they don't want to know more, or there's nothing to be gained out of the conversation, and just take it one step further. Ask one more question, or even if they say, no, I'm not interested in any of that, like, you can still talk on the same subject. And I've literally had messages with people where they've said, like, no, I don't want any of the Beachbody programs. And I'll say, like, oh, cool, just curious, like, what do you do? Or just curious, did you have a bad experience with those, or what don't you like about them? And I'm amazed by how many misunderstandings I find of people that think challenge groups are a certain thing, or they think it's in person, or there's lots of misunderstandings about what we actually have to offer. So that's where it's important to just take the conversation one step further. Because in any conversation, you can either make it just about sales, which then that's not good. It looks like we're just digging for customers, or you can make it just about the relationship and never really get to the point of asking. So I love the phrase, don't hold somebody else's destiny in your mouth. And that is so true with this business, because when we assume somebody is not interested or doesn't want to hear it or doesn't want to feel pressured, then we are potentially holding them away from something that could potentially positively change their life. So don't be afraid to ask. Don't make assumptions. We can present what we have to offer in a very, very no pressure way. And you guys all know that's my style and that's what I like. And I think my business benefits from that. But it is important that you just ask. Come from a place of caring. Come from a place of promoting this stuff as if you were making no money. So I always run things through the filter of, back when I used to go to a gym, I would often tell people, like, hey, have you ever been to the kickboxing class? Like, it's so much fun. Want to go sometime? And there was nothing in it for me, but it was just something that helped me and worked for me and that I wanted to share with others. So if you're doing that in the way you talk about Beachbody, you have nothing to worry about. So be brave, ask one more question, take the conversation one step further than you normally would take it. And that's going to be a different place for every single conversation, because some conversations you don't go very in depth about Beachbody or health and fitness because they might not seem really interested at all. Some people, you might talk a lot about it, and then they might be hesitant on one or two things. And so wherever the conversation would naturally hit its end, just ask one more question. Just keep it going, learn more. So I'll give you one last example, and I know this video has been long, so I'll keep it short. But I have a good relationship with John Henney, who owns Henney Jewelers in Pittsburgh. And so I asked him recently if I could just spend a little time there and learn from him and learn some of their sales techniques. I just think the way they run their business is phenomenal. It's been voted one of the most ethically run business, one of the best places to work. So I was just curious to learn a little bit more. I'd heard a leadership talk with him. I was just curious to learn a little bit more about their approach and learn from him directly. So I was briefly in the store the other day, and I witnessed an interaction between the salesperson and somebody who came into the store, and the guy was asking about a watch, and he basically said, I'm sick today. I'm not really interested in buying anything today. I just wanted to see if you had this certain type of watch available. And she did a great job of really asking him questions like, oh, is it a special occasion? What are you looking for? And he said something about going to Europe and wanted something for his trip. And I felt like it was a missed opportunity for her to continue the conversation and just say, oh, what takes you to Europe? Or, there's all those different ways. And of course, it's so much easier for me as somebody observing it to see those points versus when you're the one actually having the conversation. But we as coaches also have the benefit of, we have a lot of these conversations on social media, on Messenger and Facebook and email and things like that. So we have the time to stop and think, what is one more way I could just open this conversation a little bit more? And if you're not sure of what those are, then I recommend you pairing up with somebody or coming to me or your sponsored coach and saying, hey, can you look at these few conversations? Is there an opportunity that I could ask one more question? Feel free to post it in Team Inspire. I would love that, because then I'm happy to share with you what I would say, and other coaches can share with you what they would say to help you brainstorm. But then we all learn from that, not just you or not just one coach. Then we all benefit from seeing those different ideas, because even if you're a brand new coach, I know you have value to offer, and and none of us know it all. So sharing in that way is a big help. So anyways, if you also want more information on this topic, if you search in Google Scotty Hobbs, invite, it will take you to a blog of his where it was from that same winter summit that I mentioned that I learned from him this technique, or I realized kind of where I was falling short, and then I sort of developed this technique that really worked well. And he gives some of his rundown of his tips. Caleb Thomas he has a great 3-minute video in there that shows you how to formulate, how to tell your story in 60 seconds. It's phenomenal. And then I have a video in there where it was fresh from that conference or that winter summit where I gave my initial talks of where to ask 1 or 2 more questions. So that was years ago. So still to this day, years later, it's still like, I think, my best technique. I've proven to myself over and over again how many more doors that opens just by asking those 1 or 2 more questions. And very, very few times do I feel like that in any way negatively affects my business. I don't feel like it turns people off. I think it's just me showing more interest in them, and people love that and they appreciate it. And seeing that helps you gain the confidence to do that more and more, and to see how much it can positively affect your business, your sales, your relationship with people, and give them a better idea of what you do and what you have to offer. Because even if they're not interested, they'll know what you have to offer down the line when they become ready, or if they know somebody else who will be looking for what you have to offer, it is important for them to truly understand that. So that's why another reason why you want to be asking those questions. So I hope that all makes sense. And if you guys have more questions on this, or you need any help with sales or conversations or inviting, please post in the group and I will be happy to help you in any way I can. See you guys later.